It's good to have you back on Global Business Report here on Arise News. OPEC has cut its forecast for growth in world oil demand in 2020 due to an economic slowdown.
Right. Well, in its latest monthly report, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries said oil demand worldwide would expand by 1.08 million barrels per day. That's up to 60,000 barrels per day, less than previously estimated, and indicated in the market there would still be in surplus.
Indeed, and joining us in the studio to discuss these developments in the oil sector is an analyst, financial derivatives, Adim Okwesa. Adim, it's good to have you with us.
Good to have you. Pleasure to be here.
Very good. Now, John Bolton's firing, the Iranian oil question, and a fall in oil prices. What's the connection here?
Well, John Bolton has his career has been built on a hardline stance towards Iran, or hawkish stance towards Iran.
Yeah.
With the fact that John Bolton has departed from the U.S. administration, there's this likelihood that the U.S. would sign a deal with Iran. There's this President Macron of France has touted this $15 billion stimulus plan towards Iran. There are also signs that U.S. President Trump is considering easing sanctions on Iran.
Yeah.
If that happens, we could see potentially 2.5 million barrels, 3 million barrels added to the market of Iran's oil exports. Remember what happened this time last year when I think the U.S. granted some waivers to about 8 countries to continue importing oil from Iran? That led to about a 15%, 20% decline in oil prices. So if Iran comes back, then it would have a significant downward impact on oil prices.
Very good.
So if we were then to focus on the current oil slump, do you think it can be sustained rather, or is it just reactionary?
Given the current macroeconomic environment, I think oil prices will struggle to make any headway till perhaps this time next year. There's this concern of recession. We're seeing Germany is technically into recession. It's just for the data to come out. Turkey is contracting, emerging market economies are contracting. So we have Brexit. So there's so many issues that are weighing over the global economy. So given the current macroeconomic environment, there's nothing that I can see that will change the sentiment unless, let's say, a trade deal is announced or a hard Brexit is averted. Yeah. Without that, there's no improvement. I don't see any improvement in market sentiment, and oil prices will struggle to recover from its current level. Yeah.
All right, Adam, nice one. There's expectation global oil demand will increase by 900,000 barrels per day. That's in 2019. How will that impact global pricing as well, you think?
Well, yes, we can see, although OPEC has made a lot of progress to deepen its production cuts, we just see there was a monitoring committee meeting where OPEC urges members to continue with its production cuts. But on the non-OPEC side, we're seeing rising production from Mexico, rising production from Norway, Brazil, even countries like Nigeria and Brazil, with Nigeria and Iraq, which are members of OPEC, have failed to comply with this agreement. So we're still seeing higher production from those countries. So if we all put that together, we can see the market is likely to be oversupplied, just like the OPEC report highlighted. The market is likely to be oversupplied in 2020, regardless of what OPEC does. And I think OPEC is adopting a wait-and-see approach with regards to this Iran-US deal. We don't know if a deal will be signed, so I think OPEC would maintain a wait-and-see approach until there's more certainty.
Indeed.
If we were to focus domestically and look at the Nigerian economy, how has the oil slump affected the Nigerian economy, especially in things like budget implementation?
Yes, we rely on OPEC, on oil for a lot. Oil is what drives other sectors. We need oil to implement reforms in other sectors. So the fact that oil prices are very low is having a very significant impact on us, physical and external accounts. The 2020 budget just came out recently. Budget price is $55 per barrel, which in my view is still, I think it still needs a downward review. But it's more prudential than $60 per barrel for 2019. And I think we'll probably have to review that downwards, that oil price benchmark. So, but in reality, we need higher oil prices because there is also this threat of the $9 billion on our external reserves with regards to this P&ID case. So we need oil prices to lift external reserves, and if external reserves are in threat, the currency is in threat, and there's so many consequences that lower prices could have on the economy. So we need higher oil prices, to be honest. Yeah.
Indeed, and which also will need to intensify the call for a diversified economy, because we still depend on this, and it's not getting the much benefits as we should. Now, let's talk about the implication, or rather, how has Nigeria handled volatility issues regarding oil and unpredictable nature of oil pricing over time, you think?
Well, we have fared well. I think we can see moves by the federal government to sort of to ease its dependency on oil. We can see this move to lift the VAT rate to 7.2%. That is a good example. That is still very low. Our VAT rate compared to other African countries, for example, 7.2% is still very low. Although most Nigerians wouldn't like to hear this, but I think that should be, VAT rates should actually be higher.
We're still waiting for that response from them.
So I think in 2020, that VAT tax will be implemented, and that will just boost our oil income. We can see also reforms are being done in the agricultural sector, manufacturing sector. So although it's taking a lot of time, but it's a step in the right direction. I believe in the next couple of years we'll be less dependent on oil.
Yeah, it's good to be optimistic. Yeah. Femi.
Well, gosh, talking about optimism now, going in the other direction, but we know that OPEC has slightly revised its outlook for growth next year down. I mean, it could be stating the obvious, but tell us why.
Well, yeah, like I said, there's this ceiling which is putting pressure on oil prices. I remember earlier in July, where we saw Iran and the US come to a head. The US deployed missiles to Iran, only at the last minute stopped. Ordinarily, that should boost oil prices significantly. But because of this trade overhang, this demand concerns, oil prices are not trending upwards. So and the recession is very imminent, if not 2020, then most likely 2021. So this demand concern, we're seeing weakness in the US. The US is still growing, but we're seeing data came out that private consumption is slowing. That means demand for oil is slowing. So apart from the US, China, although most other advanced and emerging market economies are suffering, and we're seeing central banks respond to that. The ECB yesterday reduced rates. So central banks are trying to prepare for a global recession. So unless, like I said, unless there's something that improves market sentiment, there's no way oil prices would recover. Oil prices will struggle to make any headway. Yeah.
All right, talking about next year, what are the likely possibility of having a sustained price hike? And what will be the dynamics that will drive that possibility?
No one wants to hear this. No one wants a war. But I think the only way oil prices would rise is, let's say there's a war in the Middle East. No one wants to hear this, but that's the only way oil prices would rise. Or let's say there's
the Iranian imbroglio as well. You know, every now and then.
Yes. Or let's say a country like Libya, there's conflict in all these war-torn countries. And let's say that's the only way. Or Venezuela, that's the only way oil prices will lift significantly, but no one wants these kind of things.
Yeah. True. I know you've listed that those are the only reasons, or I guess methods, why oil prices would lift. I have to tell you both a secret though. Last night, or rather this morning, I woke up, thankfully, and I dreamt, I'm not joking, I dreamt that oil prices were back at $99 per barrel. Can you tell me how long I have to sleep in order for me to wake up to find that to actually be the case?
Well, the long term, the fact that we're seeing economies gradually wean themselves of oil. Oil is a dying commodity. Like, for example, India, as one data point which I found very shocking. India's car sales declined by 49% in Q2. That shows because it has set a target to switch from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles by 2030. So the demand for oil is declining. So, and that just increases the urgency for us to wean ourselves off oil. So I don't think oil prices would rise to that level unless there's a war in the Middle East or something like that.
I'll be sleeping for years.
Yeah, so talking about the less dependence, emphasis on fossil fuels and internal combustion engine, as it were. So how do you see that competing, aggressively with the current oil technology as well?
Oh, please repeat your question, please. I don't.
No, I'm talking about the reliability, non-reliance on fossil fuels. Okay, we're seeing more emphasis on going green, and doing stuff without the dependence on oil. So, how do you see the future of oil itself regarding the threat of alternative technology, as it were?
Yes, apart from this, we're seeing this rising awareness of climate change. More countries are adopting, are switching from fossil fuels like coal, oil to more greener sources of energy.
Yeah.
So with that combined, and also this electric vehicles thing, even people are starting to own cars less. We're moving to this ride-hailing, Uber,
More on
Lyft.
bicycles and
Exactly.
stuff.
So the demand for oil to power your cars, to power as a source of energy would certainly decline in the next 5 to 10 years. So it's highly imperative for us to wean ourselves off oil, unless we'll be
Especially
stuck
countries
here.
like Nigeria.
Exactly.
Right. Adim Okwesa of Financial Derivatives, many thanks for your thoughts on these issues.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you.
Thank you.
All right.